We say things like, maybe later, perhaps another time, or I'll see you tomorrow. But for some of us, there won't be a tomorrow. Listen as your worst nightmares come to life. These nightmares have become someone's reality. My name is Justin Crowley, and this is The Murder Project. Hello everyone, and welcome to episode 10 of The Murder Project. This episode is going to be a little bit of a special one. We're going to call these episodes that we bring you from time to time Stories of Two Not Cops. This will be part number 1. As always, in these episodes, I'll have my main man Mike with me, and we will be bringing you a interesting point of view, our point of view of coming into law enforcement and different things that have happened to us while we worked in law enforcement. This episode is going to act kind of like the debrief because it'll be both of us, as I've already stated, and it'll be unscripted and off-the-cuff commentary, just like in the debriefs. We're not going to be breaking any cases down in this one, but as always, it'll be that relaxed environment, talking about different aspects of crime and how we got there, how we got into the job, and hopefully this will be more relaxed and a little bit more funny. In saying all that, I don't think there's anywhere else to go but to start the actual episode. So hang in there, and episode 10 starts right now. My main man, my homie, my road dog, Mike Smith. How are you, sir?
Man, I'm doing good. I'm very excited for this. We've been talking about it for a while, and I've even brought it up to some people as like a possible thing that we could do. And so I know they're very excited to hear it because I think... most importantly, I think this is something that a lot of people need to hear.
Yeah. And originally, we kind of said the Two Not Cops was was our original plan for the podcast.
Yeah, and I still
4
stand by
years
that.
ago. Yeah.
That name is gold.
Yeah, Two Not Cops. Spinoff?
A spinoff. Yeah.
Maybe later on down the road.
Let's go ahead and do that. You know what, everybody? Just give us a 5-star review.
Let's get this going. We got a spinoff already.
I know, we already got it. We're already ahead of the game. So. Yeah.
But we
give
both
us the credit where it's due.
Yeah, we're both just so consumed in work right now. We cannot pull off 2 different podcasts at the same time.
No, it's pretty rough.
We're barely hanging on to this one as it is right now, but we're going to.
Yeah, we are.
Mark my words and Mike's words. Mm-hmm. This podcast is going to continue no matter what happens.
We're going to go full Hercules here. We're going to go the distance.
Yeah. This is going to be a good one.
Don't come at me, Disney.
We don't have anything to take anyways.
Before we get too far, I do want to say that I'm going to take this minute to give a shout out to our faithful listener in Canadian Texas, Jenna. What's up?
What's up, Jenna?
Thank you so much.
Yeah, Mike's mentioned that you're kind of on it with the podcast, wanting to know where they're at and wanting to know what the next story is going to be. And we appreciate stuff like that. Like all the feedback. You know what? That one guy that always messages us, you know him, right? The guy that messages us on...
Oh, yeah. Yes, I do know him. Let's call him Chris.
Okay. Yeah. Okay, Chris, thank you also for reaching out to us and letting us go. Anytime we ask a question, that guy's like on it to give us some feedback. He really does. And we enjoy that. So if you've been hesitant, please get on there, give us some feedback, tell us what you want to know. Make sure you give us a 5-star review if you're listening on Apple Podcast. If you're not, I know that 86% of the people that listen to this podcast are listening on iPhones. So just go in there, find The Murder Project, give us a review, write something, hit 5 stars, let us get past the algorithm. We kind of put that in the beginning. I'll put it at the end too. Yeah. I'm going to say it again.
You're going to get a 2 for this episode.
And so that we can get our name out there. We have we've been downloading a lot. And you know what? Now that we're talking about this, I want to go ahead and just say that Mike and I are really thankful for everyone that's been listening. I think, we can't state that enough, but I wanted to let you guys know that we have listeners in a lot of different places.
Oh no, very exciting.
And so I want to give a shout out to everyone. So now we have in countries and territories 13 totals. United States, of course, Canada, United Kingdom, Sweden, France, Australia, Ireland, Iceland, the Netherlands, Romania, Malaysia, the Virgin Islands, and now, as of looks like yesterday, India.
Oh man, namaste.
So we've been downloading a total of 122 different cities.
That's so cool.
Really cool. I won't take up too much more time with that because I know you guys are ready for us to get into the meat and potatoes of this podcast. So this Two Not Cops episode, part 1, is going to talk about how Mike and I got into law enforcement and how all of that kind of shaped out in our personal lives and our professional lives.
Yeah, spoiler alert. We're not cops anymore.
No, and I am very thankful for the time that I had as a police officer.
Same,
and the people that I met. And of course, is there good and bad things that happens in every profession? Absolutely. Mike and I are pro law enforcement, as we've already stated. And, but we there's different things that we could talk about in and out of the process. So we thought part 1 will start at the beginning.
Absolutely.
So for me, I know that I grew up in a really small town. I was born in a small town, and then I moved to an even smaller town while I was in junior high. And ever since I was a kid, I remember that I wanted to be a police officer. I used to sit at my house with my Meemaw, and
that's how you know he's from Texas.
Yeah, me and my Meemaw would hang out at the house, and we'd watch Chips and Matlock and Perry Mason.
Dang.
And so I really I loved Chips. I loved Matlock, but I always knew I never wanted to be an attorney. Like that part of it didn't really connect anywhere with me.
I mean, it's really hard to end up being an attorney because you know that you have to be just real greasy.
Yeah. I think there's no way that's no offense to anybody. That's the way you got to play the game.
Yeah, you got to play the game.
Or you get played.
That's exactly right. I mean, it is.
That's why it's such a big, in law enforcement and, attorneys and things like that. It's kind of like you're in a ongoing competition that never ends.
That's right.
And so, I really liked the show Chips. It was, of course, about the California Highway Patrol, and they rode the motorcycles, and it was just awesome. And
you're talking about Eric Estrada right now.
Yeah, absolutely.
Great head of hair.
Awesome. Still has a great head of hair.
Sure
I don't know
does.
if it's real, but he's still got something up there.
Well, that's not the question we're asking.
Way more than either of us.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, my sides are running pretty heavy right now, but, so I knew I always wanted to be a cop, and whenever I was in junior high and high school, our home economics teacher, her husband was a Texas Department of Public Safety officer, a DPS trooper. And those are like the top law dog in Texas.
Yeah,
like
man.
when you think, there's always a lot of contention against like city cops, county deputies, and like highway patrols, because the highway patrols are just like, man, they're the dudes.
Everybody in
Or
Texas
chicks.
knows them. They're the ones with the white hoods trying to ruin your afternoon.
Yeah. White hoods, cowboy hat, game over.
That's right.
And guess what? Guess what you're getting away with DPS?
Nothing.
Not a thing.
Yeah.
Not a thing. And if it's around the holidays, you had 1 or 2 drinks, stay away.
That's right.
Stay away, because if one of those guys or girls get you, you're going to jail.
Yeah.
100%.
Yeah.
Because their job is to enforce traffic code on the highways, respond to vehicle accidents or what have you, and arrest people for DWI, driving
right.
while intoxicated. Like if you've had too much booze, you better call you an Uber.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's a thing now, and that's almost everywhere. So you better get in there and get you an Uber.
Mm-hmm.
So anyways, I had many conversations with him, and I just really liked the dynamics of highway patrol and law enforcement in general. And that's something I really wanted to do. So when I graduated from high school, or right before I graduated from high school, actually, I enrolled in a program at my school where I got to get my EMT basic certification. And while I was doing my EMT basic certification, I decided that maybe instead of law enforcement, I would be a EMT firefighter, because in Big Spring, you're both. Because the town is kind of smaller, they don't have a EMS, ambulance service, and a fire department. You're in the same station house.
Right.
So what they would normally do is they'd have 2 people on the box, like at the ambulance, and then they'd have 3 or 4 people assigned to the engine for the fire, and then you would rotate inside that department.
Yeah.
And then once you got hired, you had to go get your paramedic license, but you could start with the EMT basic and get your firefighter certification. So you can start pretty young.
Yeah.
And So I was doing my clinical rotations for my EMT basic, and we picked this lady up one time, and I was in the back, and I was helping this guy, and she was in a diabetic shock. And so the guy hands me this tube of D50, I believe is what it's called. And I don't know if they still use it, but it's a gel that you squirt inside their mouth, and they hold it between like their cheek and their gums, and it helps raise their blood sugar rapidly or whatever. And
interesting.
So the guy, twists off the cap on it, hands it to me. He's like, "Hey, squirt this in her mouth, and we're gonna get that." So I take it and I squirt it into her mouth in that deal, and she just rears back like a dude, like a real salty, nasty dude, and just hawks that right back into my face.
Oh my, gross!
Like into my face, and I just remember like paralyzed, where I wasn't even moving, and I was like, "Oh my gosh! Now I have all of this in my eyeballs."
Yeah.
And
she just hacked it at you like a Dilophosaurus straight out of Jurassic Park.
Yeah, just right into my face.
Yeah.
So after that, I was like, I think maybe I'm gonna roll back into the old LE, to the law enforcement field. I decided that having that EMT certification definitely would not hurt me. And truth be told, I used that a lot while I was in law enforcement because we're first on the scene a lot of times.
Sure, yeah, that's true. Yeah, a lot of times you end up having to help people before the people that do it like for real get there. Yeah.
And in no way was I like the guy that was like, stand back. No, I would do my job, and then when the paramedics showed up, I'm stepping right back out. I'm out.
Yeah, of course.
These guys are professional. They know their job way better than I did. I went to, an EMT basic class. I claim to know nothing about that past what that little
just
bit
down
of
here
training.
Trying to save lives, buddy. Trying to here to service the public, save lives. And so I got into law enforcement, or I was a criminal justice major. I graduated with associate's degree in criminal justice, associates of science, and then I moved up to Amarillo to go to West Texas A&M University, and I was working at a convenience store. And we've talked about that, the convenience store, my $7.50 an hour job, and I had an interview at the sheriff's office here, and I found out early on that at that time, and I think it's changed now, and it has a lot for a lot of different places. This is 2006, but there was nothing extra you got for having a bachelor's degree. So since I already had an associate's degree, I basically, they told me it kind of washed out to about like 2 points on a promotional exam or something like that. But in the same time, if you took like some sort of an advanced class, that could be 2 to 4 points. Yeah.
So I'm like, a bachelor's degree. So I'm a senior, and hindsight's 20/20, but I'm about to start my senior year, and I never went back because I realized at that point that it wasn't going to serve me anymore, and I was going to have to work and go to school at the same time.
And that sounds miserable, saying it out loud.
Yeah, and I would get a lot of that. We'll talk about it later whenever I went through the academy. But so I went through all the stuff I had to go through at the sheriff's office, which was a physical agility, just standard anywhere. Had to have my background check done. Had to do a group interview, a solo interview, psych evaluation, all that stuff. And so I got the job. I got hired on, and I showed up on my first day, 8 a.m., bright and early. And, I've got my crisp new uniform on. Everything's tight, cinched up. I'm ready to go. I'm like 22 years old.
Consummate professional.
And I'm just so excited. And I have no clue what I'm doing.
You don't
like,
either.
What I'm about to get, like what I'm doing. So to be sworn in as a correctional officer, because that's what I was first. I started at the jail, at the sheriff's office. And especially back then, it was a system that you had to start in the jail. You had to spend at least 2 years in the jail before you could go to the academy and then go out to patrol. So that's kind of doing your time, like paying your dues, learning the system. And anybody out there that's thinking about going into law enforcement, especially if you're younger, you can't be a peace officer in the state of Texas. And I'm sure this is pretty common in most places until you're 21 years old.
Right.
And so if you already know that that's the direction that you want to go in, I would recommend you spending that time in corrections, because you get a solid background of the policies and procedures that you're going to have to follow, your rank system, how the paperwork and all your stuff's done. But not only that, you learn the people that you're going to actually be dealing with when you get out on the streets.
Oh, man.
And I think that information that you get inside the jail is priceless. Like, just having that information. And then when you show up on your first day of patrol, you already know you're ready to go.
Yeah, you got to definitely have a lot more insight than somebody who has not done that before.
Yeah, so totally. Because in the academy, if you're just going through a straight base academy, you're getting a lot of scenario type situations. But you're in the jail, your real deal, it's real time, and we'll get into some of that here in a little bit. But so I show up, I get I get the remainder of my paperwork done, which wasn't much because I already had to fill out a stack of paperwork that was 2 inches high by that point. And I got in. There's a little swear-in ceremony, which it wasn't as big as it is whenever you become a deputy, but I appreciate that because it gives you something to look forward to. And then they take me back. At this point, I'm in the administration part. So you're still in an office type setting. And then they walk me back and I go through this officer dining room area. And then there's a big long wall of gun boxes. And for those of you who don't know, it's like a little, looks like a little mailbox, like tiny little mailboxes. And you open these up with your key because before you go into a secured area, which is what a jail is, you have to put your firearm in there. Now, I did not have one because I was new and I was a correctional officer, which you can carry a gun as a correctional officer if you go through the training and your sheriff signs off on it. But at this time, I'm fresh rookie, day one. So I'm walking by, but they give you a gun box. So I open up the gun box, cell phone, keys, wallet, all that, throw it in the gun box. Because you don't want to leave any of that. You don't want to drop your wallet in the jail and have an inmate find it.
Oh,
because
Lord.
then they know where you live.
I can't imagine.
They know everything about you. So all of your personal items in that gun box. Then I go through the central control area, which is 2 steel doors. And there's a little breezeway in between, what do they call that little area in between there? If you don't use it, you lose it.
Yeah, that's very true.
So I go through door number 1. Boom, it slams shut behind me. I go through door number 2. Boom, it slams shuts behind me. Because the reason we have these 2-door systems is because one door is never opened until the other one is closed.
Kind of like a sally port?
Yeah, but not like the garage.
Oh,
area.
I got you.
No, I'm talking about a vestibule.
A vestibule.
Yeah, so you go through the vestibule.
I should have known. That was my second guess.
Yeah, but you saying that actually brought it back. And so like I said, the reason they do that is because you never have a door open at one time so that someone can't run out it. It's a 2-door system going in and out of everywhere. Everywhere. If you're trying to move somewhere fast, you ain't going to.
No.
Because everything is on a 2-door system. Going through the vestibule to get into the jail. There's a 2-door system going into the booking room that went down. Broadway is the hallway that went down and connected to all the pods. But there was 2-door systems there. If you're going into the pods, just entering the cluster area, because there's one cluster area and then there's like 4 pods that kind of splinter off of that. 2 doors going into there, 2 doors going into the pod. So if you just want to walk in from outside that first door, and you just want to go to say D pod, you're going to go through like 8 to 10 doors just to get there. And one closes, one opens. Most of them are rollers, but some of them are actual doors. So I walk in and they hand me over to my jail training officer, JTO in the field, they're FTOs. And I walk up to him. They introduce, hey, this is the new guy. And everybody was just looking at me like New Jack City, like this fresh baby face. He's not allowed to have facial hair, which
look at this idiot.
Yeah, really growing anyways. Yeah. And everybody is just looking at you, like judging you.
Yep.
They're like sizing you up already.
Absolutely.
Because they want to figure out, they're like, the first thing in everybody's head is like, things go off the rail. Is this guy going to be able to handle it? Looks over at you and they're like,
that's so true.
Not this guy.
That's so true.
I'm like, no one even knows me, but they don't give you an inch. You have to earn that.
Yeah, you do.
And soon enough, I would get a chance to do that. And it doesn't take long usually, especially if you work in a jail, crazy things happen. But I walk in, I'm in the booking room because the guy that I got assigned to was working movement that day, I believe, or he might have been assigned to the booking room. But in the beginning, when you first sign up, you're going to be a pod guy. Like you're going to be in, because I worked in a direct supervision jail, and there's direct supervision, indirect supervision, and linear jails. And so I was in a direct supervision jail, And so that means when the inmates are out in the day room, they got the stainless steel tables, 2 TVs.
Yeah.
They've got, phone bank and, book carts and things like that. So, and they're all in individual cells. There's 2 rows. The first floor has 24 cells. The second floor has 24 cells. So there's 48 inmates to 1 officer.
Mm-hmm.
You're in there with them. And so you roll the doors, you let them out. There's a red line that goes around the whole room. They have to ask to cross the red line.
Mm-hmm.
And on the other side of that red line is going to be your phones, your book cart, your hot pot so you can get hot water. You can make you a spread, make a cup of noodles or something.
Yeah, get that cup of noodle.
And the showers and all that stuff. And so they have to ask permission to cross the red line. You're going to go up to 2 row. You're going to be checking cells because there's strict guidelines on their beds have to be made. Their cell has to be cleaned up. You can't have a messy cell. And if you do, or if you break any of the rules, you can go on a 1 to 23 hour lockdown.
Yikes.
So if you break the rules, you say, hey man, you're on 12-hour lockdown. Like you ain't coming out till tomorrow. And clean up your bed, make your bunk, get your stuff ready. So I go into, I luck out and I go into booking and I'm standing there and my JTO who I ended up working for at this time, he and I were basically almost at the same level. He was a jail training officer. I was a rookie, but as far as like our status and pay and everything else went, we're practically the same.
Yeah.
This guy would go on
peer training.
Yeah. This guy would go on later on to be my sergeant in patrol. Super great guy. I learned a lot from him and, I was very thankful, to have met him and become friends with him and allow that kind of mentorship to go on because he was one of the best. But I'm standing in the booking room. I'm getting sized up by the officers. I'm getting sized up by the inmates in there too because they can tell immediately new guys.
Yeah, man, they get them street smarts.
Yeah. They're like fresh fish up in here. This dude is new. And another thing is if you're going to go into there, the one thing I was taught by this guy, and I can't express how much you guys need to understand this. Firm, fair, and consistent. You better be firm, fair, and consistent because you can always walk that back. You can always walk it back. There's this guy. There's these cells in the booking room we have detox cells, we have violent cells, and the reason called violent cells because people start acting crazy. They get put in these violent cells. They're padded rooms. And so it's kind of like that rubbery kind of padding deal. There's like this square grill in the middle of the floor, and that's where you do your 1s and 2s. There's no toilet in there.
Dang.
You just have to pee or drop a deuce in the middle of the floor with this grill over the top of it.
Oh, yuck.
Yeah, and then you have to go, hey boss, can I get a flush? And then we hit a button on the outside of the door and you flush it. But I didn't know all this then. So I'm standing there and I can just hear this guy screaming at the top of his lungs. And I'm like, what is going on? And the guy looks at me, he's like, hey, will you look in that door? Cause it's a solid metal door and it's got a window, but it's got a metal covering over it. Like you open up this little metal covering on the window and then you can look in the cell. He's like, hey, will you look in there and make sure he's not doing anything he's not supposed to be doing? And I'm like, I'm thinking in my head, like what?
Like what?
I don't
Exactly.
know what he's not
What do you
supposed
mean?
to be doing.
Is he not supposed to be screaming? I hear him screaming.
Yeah, he's screaming at the top of his lungs. And so I open the door to this window and there is this burly man, this long beard. He looks like a crazy man. I mean, and he's 1 inch. His face is 1 inch off the window. So when I open up the door, I'm like, oh, he's right there and he's staring at me like with this sinister look, but he's smiling. And he starts singing and he backs up away from the window. And as he's backing up, I look down and I'm like, oh my gosh, just Twig and Giggleberries on full view.
Dude, just butt naked.
Just butt naked in the cell. And I was like, oh my God. I like turn around. I'm like, sir, this man doesn't have any clothes on. And they're like, yeah, we know. They're like, he can't have any clothes. And I'm like, why not?
Why not?
Why is this something that we get? And he's screaming and cussing and yelling at me. And I was like, and then later on I found out we had these suits. We used to call them Bam Bam suits, but they were like kind of almost like little dress, like Velcroed on, like dress type deals.
Yeah, like a man dress.
Yeah, and they were made out of really, really thick material, so you couldn't tie them in knots. But apparently, this guy had taken his and tried to cram it down that the doo-doo hole, the grill,
the toilet.
the toilet. Yeah. He tried to cram it in there, and then he just took a dump right on top of it. So they took it away from him. They're like, you don't get this anymore. And so he's in there butt naked.
You know, that's a good rule of thumb generally. If someone's going to take a dump on something, they don't really want it.
They don't want it. Yeah.
Yeah.
So no one can see him. Like, the reason why that door and the windows covered is like, if anybody comes in, you know, if you have a soccer mom that is arrested for a hot check and she's just going to be booked in, booked out, and released, she doesn't have to see that guy. You know what I mean?
Thankfully so.
Thank goodness. And
because hey, man, jail will change you.
It changed your life.
That would change you.
Yeah. And I'm just sitting there like 12 hours ago, I was working in a convenience store. 12 hours before this.
Just handing people 44-ounce Dr. Peppers through the drive-through window and selling smoky treats.
Yeah, just ciggies and hot dogs. That was my thing. I stocked beer coolers. I did stuff like that. Like, I don't even know what I'm doing. Like, that was my first realization, like, holy cow.
You're just in an entirely different world.
Yeah, things got so real so fast. Just like gut punch.
Yeah.
Just right then. And I look around at everybody, and it's like casual Friday.
Yeah, they're just chilling.
Everybody's at, and I'm like, does anybody not hear this man screaming?
Someone
and they're like,
doing
he's been screaming for 48 hours.
Someone doing the crossword from the today's paper.
Yeah. I was like, oh my gosh. And then he's like, hey, let's go take a tour of the jail. And I was like, okay, you know. And,
are they all naked?
Yeah. Is anybody else going to be naked? And, unfortunately, yeah, I saw a lot of naked men in,
yeah,
in
you're
the
going to
4 years that I spent in the jail. And it was, very, something that I'm glad I don't have to deal with anymore. But that's the crazy thing. And my takeaway from that was, like I said, 12 hours before that, and really 8 hours before that.
Yeah.
Because I got off work at midnight. I went home, went to sleep, and I was up at the sheriff's office at 8 a.m.
Holy smokes.
My last day rolled in. My last day and start day were technically the same day because I got off at midnight, and then I went to work at 8 a.m. I'd been in there for 10 minutes, and I just saw this wild man in a violent cell, butt naked.
Just butt naked. Screaming
at me. And the things that he was saying to me, I will not repeat.
Yeah.
But that's when I realized on that day, the first 10 minutes that I'd been in there, that this job was unlike any job I'd ever had before because that man had no idea who I was and he hated me.
That's right.
He hated me for the uniform that I was wearing and the badge that was on my chest. He didn't know me. He didn't know a thing about me. I couldn't have possibly wronged anybody by this point because I'd literally been in the jail for 10 minutes. I was 10 minutes into my day.
Yep.
And I already had a guy that was yelling at me, screaming profanity at me, saying things to me that were somewhat new.
Yeah.
Insults. I was like, I don't even know what that guy's talking about.
I've never even heard that before. Yeah.
Crash course on it because I would later on, and it was eye opening. But it helped me. I don't know if I'd say help me, but it made me understand very quickly that I was in a new business, in a new game, and I'd never met anybody in my life that just hated me from the word go.
No kidding.
And so that's kind of my brush up on.
Yeah.
What about yourself?
Oh, mine's quite a bit different. Like like most young boys and girls, I'd thought about being a police officer because it's cool.
Yeah. Playing like some cops and robbers or something?
Absolutely, yeah. You definitely did that, yeah. I was always on the SWAT team, though, when I was a kid, yeah. Because I had a fence picket that I carved into the vague shape of a pump shotgun.
Oh, sweet.
And so, obviously, back then, only SWAT guys had shotguns in the movies.
And that was cool.
Dude, I was a cool little hood rat.
Yeah.
Dude, I was. But fast forward, I get out of the U.S. Army in 2009. I moved to Amarillo, Texas. I'm not from Texas. I'm an import.
We're glad to have you, though.
Thanks, man. I do fit in here. Yeah, I hear that a lot.
Very well.
Because, but...
A lot of people don't even realize that you're not from here until you tell them.
I picked up the accent.
Yeah.
Which, when you move around a lot as a kid, like I did, you do that thing. Whatever seems, whatever type of regional diction you can cling to fit in, you do that.
Yeah.
And I did. But I was looking for work. And if anybody recalls, 2009 was rough because the housing market crashed the year before.
Yeah, things were rough then.
So jobs were tweaked.
Yeah, I actually remember, because I got hired on in 2006, and I remember going through all that thinking that no matter what, my job was secure.
Right.
And that was
That's a good
thing.
feeling.
Yeah, it's a good feeling.
Yeah, but I was struggling to find any decent job. Now, there was work, I'm sure.
Yeah. And
No.
we're talking about you're an infantryman.
That's right. Yeah, I did 8 years in the U.S. Army, and the infantry was my specialization. I got out as a sergeant. It was a good time.
Yeah. So this is kind of like a natural role for you. I mean,
It
if
did
you think
end up-
about law enforcement.
Right. Yeah, it did end up being that way. But again, I was not thinking about that. And so I'm looking for jobs. I'm applying here and there.
Like Red Lobster and stuff.
No, not even. I hadn't fallen that far yet.
Okay.
Not into the food industry. I hadn't gotten there yet. So I'm close.
Good tips.
And then my ex-wife goes, "Hey, the Amarillo Police Department's hiring. You ever thought about being a cop?" And that's all she said. She kind of said it in passing. And so I pull up their website and I click the apply now. And it did take a long time,
It is a long process.
especially because normally it's about 6 months,
Yeah.
maybe longer. But for me, it was over a year. I think it was a year and 4 months because of the economy.
Yeah. I think mine was
So
6.5 months. Is
fast
what it took me to
forward
get hired on.
a year later, I get a phone call and they're like, "Hey, you made it into the police academy." And I was like, "Say what now?" And they're like, "Hey, you made it to the police academy. You start in 2 weeks. July 1st will be your first day." And I was like,
You're like, I already forgot about this.
I mean, I'd nearly given up hope. It's so long. Now, again, it's a very important part of the story. This doesn't normally take that long,
Yeah.
but Amarillo experienced a lot of issues with the economy dropping out there for a while. But
And
anyway.
you can't, but it is something to say. If you need a job in 2 weeks, this ain't it.
no, it wasn't.
You cannot get a job.
No.
I mean, it's going to take a while. So be patient.
Yeah, you do got to.
Yeah. Go ahead.
And then, so he said, "Yep, just show up, wear a suit and tie, like a dress shirt and slacks and a tie on your first day, and then give your job 2 weeks." And I said, "I ain't working. I'm going to school on the GI Bill. Thank you, America."
Yeah.
And he said,
And
"Okay."
thank you for your service.
Oh, thanks, man.
That's not, yeah.
It was a
Thank you,
great
GI
time.
Bill,
I
but
highly
thank you for your
recommend
service.
that anybody that doesn't know what they're doing, join one of the branches of the military. It's a fantastic start to your life. You're going to see a lot of weird stuff.
Yeah.
And if you go overseas and have to deploy into combat zones overseas, you're going to see a lot more weird stuff.
Yeah. Which you did a couple times.
I
Right?
did, yeah. I served 2 tours in Iraq. And then you get out, and especially in the infantry, I found out that all of those skills are worth nothing.
Yeah. Yeah. When you get into the real world.
Yeah, it
it's
was
like,
true. I was startled to see. They're like, "Fantastic, man. You got a lot of combat experience. You got a lot of experience overall. You were a non-commissioned officer. That's fantastic. We'll pay you $9 an hour." And you're like, "Oh, okay."
Like,
But that's neither here nor there.
I thought, what was the talk about the experience and all the, remember you were talking about like 5 minutes ago about how experienced and cool I
Yeah.
was? Was it $9 an hour? And they're like, right.
Yeah,
They're like, oh,
yeah, exactly. It is like that. Well, so sure enough, I go. This is after I've already jumped through all the hoops. So I've taken the physical for APD and the psych eval and all that stuff. But now, like, the final touches
your
get
lie
done.
detector test.
Yeah, you do. Got to go take a
Polygraph.
polygraph test. It was super unnerving. I'll never forget that. And the guy was so nice and so patient, and you're mortified
Yeah.
for no reason. And let me tell you guys, there is no reason. The questions I ask are just as vague, they're more vague than you'd ever ask. They'll be like, "Is your name Mike?" And you're like, "Yes." And they're like, "Great, doing a great job."
Hey, you're really tense right now. Could you?
Yeah.
You're like, you're not exercising.
I mean,
your
but
pulse
but
is
when they ask the
165.
question, right? Yeah, you're super nervous, no matter
Yeah.
what, even if you haven't done anything wrong. But they're like, "Hey, if you've ever, smoked pot or taken pills or drank underage or anything like that, just tell us. We don't care." And guess what, guys? They really don't care.
They don't.
Just be honest.
Don't lie and think that you're going to get it past them.
You won't.
Because if you got a minor in consumption, minor in possession, you tried some, and now the rules are kind of lax to where,
Holy smokes! Yeah.
if you're like, I used to smoke marijuana whenever I was in high school. Just tell them.
Yeah, they don't. They do not care. These are cops that have seen it all by now.
Yeah,
There's a reason they do polygraphs in the office.
yeah. And
It's
these guys that do backgrounds, just think, if you show up thinking that you're going to try something that's never been tried before,
Yeah.
you're 1,000% wrong.
Yeah. It's been done.
Yeah, it's been done, and guess what? They got busted too. And if you try to backtrack on any of this stuff, it's over.
Yeah.
Your application process, everything is completely done from that point. Boom, you're out.
For sure. For sure. And we'll cover that in detail at a later time.
Yeah.
But so I made it. And sure enough, the day comes, I shave my face. I get a haircut. I put on a dress shirt and tie and slacks, which I owned almost none of that.
I was going to ask you earlier. I was going to say, did you own a coat and tie?
Sure didn't. No. Everything else like that had ever been issued to me.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because I got out. I joined the Army. I actually joined the delayed entry program. I joined the Army when I was 16, and I waited till I graduated to join the Army, because that's all I ever wanted to do was be a soldier. And so I did that, and then I was like, I was spending a year in garrison, then a year in Iraq, and then a year in garrison, and then another year in Iraq. In fact, I was stop-lossed into my second deployment. Yeah, 18 months. And even on my DD-214, for you veteran boys out there and girls, you know what that is. It even says I was retained for 500 plus days just for convenience of the government, period. Mm-hmm. That's what it says.
When you sign the dotted line, guess what?
That's right.
They got you.
Yeah. And what's funny is the other day I was talking to a coworker of mine at my current job, and I told him I got stop-lossed, and he didn't even know what it was.
Yeah.
The world is already forgetting that stop-loss was just getting you. And what I was going to say before I continue about the police academy was that they knew I was getting stop-loss before I even got back from my first deployment.
Just held on to that little nugget of information.
Yeah. So not even 90 whole days.
Don't want you to go AWOL.
That's right. Not even 90 whole days after I got back from my first deployment, which was 12 months. I was given orders, stop-loss orders, for the next deployment that wasn't happening for 9 more months.
Yeah.
That was going to last another year.
And real quick, you got to tell that story about before you got deployed the first time. You remember when they took you into that barracks area, and then that guy, you know how you were telling me that right before you guys deployed, they took you into that?
Oh, yeah. You get locked down like it's a prison.
Yeah.
Yeah, people don't understand that. And I'll get more into that maybe in a different part. But I will tell you real quick. Whenever you get ready to deploy, you go on a lockdown. Sometimes it's longer than 24 hours. So all your bags are packed. You got your body armor and your helmet and your weapon and hopefully plenty of smoky treats, maybe some tobaccos of some kind, because they go put you in a jail. I'm not joking. You walk through, it's got C-wire, concertina wire, but we call it C-wire. A version of barbed wire, and you're stuck in there.
Yeah.
And you're just stuck there until you get on the plane. You do not get to leave.
They don't want anybody getting any ideas.
Oh, no. And
running away.
Yeah. So, it was a natural progression for me to join the academy. But again, what's important here is that I never thought I'd be a cop.
Yeah.
And I made it. And I started the police academy. I was in the 79th Police Academy of the Amarillo Police Department. And it was awesome. But the important part of this podcast episode we're having is that the mystique of being a cop was just quickly, like, you finally get to see behind the curtain. Now, they even tell you when you go to the police academy that it's a very paramilitary.
Yeah.
There's a rank structure, and there's, you're going to do PT, you're going to do physical training and like workout and stuff, and there's a certain order and cadence to which you do things on your day-to-day basis, just for the academy.
Following chain of command.
Yeah, I just want to point that out really quick. Basically, after you graduate, that's gone. You have your shift. You have your set duties. As long as you're doing them, man, I found out real quick, nobody gives a dang what else you're doing.
Yeah.
Did you do your reports? Yeah, fine. So anyway, the academy is about 6 months long.
Mine was too.
Yeah, you get about 2 years worth of law. Now, that doesn't sound like a lot, but that's something that they point out very quickly, is that you're going to learn a lot. They have 6 months to cram 2 years worth of law into your brain. You're going to learn it, or you're not going to make the cut.
Yeah. And if you're familiar with like the Bible type pages, they're going to issue you books that
my Lord,
that are way bigger and thicker than any book you've ever seen before.
And with tissue paper thin pages.
And you get this book, and they're like, hey, in the next 2 months, you're going to know everything pretty much.
Oh, yeah.
That's in this book. And you're like, what? Because you have to move on.
That's right. Yeah. You only have a set portion of the curriculum to learn this. That includes being squared away enough in the subject matter to test at the state level, which culminates at the end.
Mm-hmm. And if you don't keep up, you're washed.
That's true.
You're out.
I think you only get a couple of chances to pass the test. If you fail them too many times in a row, you just get cut.
I think in my academy, because I went later on since I started at the jail, but in my academy, I think we washed like 2 or 3 people.
Oh man,
I'm sure yours was more because it's rough. Bigger. It was probably bigger.
It wasn't that much bigger. In fact, it was a very small academy for its time. We started with 17, graduated with 11.
Yeah, I think we were in like 23.
So, but believe it or not, the part this has always boggled me. Now, this is not an insult to any one of these people if they are listening to my podcast. But a lot of people, when we start getting into the nitty gritty of what, like the dangers that are out there for a police officer, that's where a lot of them started dropping off the radar.
Yeah.
Except for the one guy that couldn't do 3 push-ups. How'd you make it?
Yeah.
Hey man, eat a protein bar.
Yeah.
He couldn't do 3 in a row. I'd never forget that. I don't remember his name. Obviously, this is not the line of work for you, bud, so I hope you're happy wherever else you are, but you couldn't even do 3 push-ups? That's rough, man.
Yeah, and also I think it's important to understand that this is not going to be the type of work for all people.
It certainly is not, and that's what I was
There's no shame in that.
No, of course not.
No shame in that at all.
You're going to walk into a world where you're going to deal, almost everyone you're dealing with is having the worst day of their life, whether it's their fault or not, and that's the mindset you have to cultivate. And a lot of these people are not ready for that. They play a lot of videos of officers of all kinds all around the world, dying in the line of duty.
Yeah.
You'd be surprised how much of that is captured on video. God rest them.
Yep.
Cause that's a horrible thing for anybody to watch. Now,
I remember those videos too.
I realized that a great deal of this, I was very, I'm not numb to that, but, I definitely had more of a callus to it because of my time in Iraq, but it's still a horrible thing to deal with because when you join the military and you go to war, you know that you're going to run into that stuff. You don't expect to deal with that stuff at home as much, but it's a real thing, and it's horrible because a lot of these videos you watch, these law enforcement officers had no idea what was about to happen to them, completely blindsided.
They're walking up to make contact with somebody
on
contact for a traffic stop, and then their life's over.
Yeah, and the thing that I would always tell myself over and over when I watch this happening is, of course, you try to be like, man, I'm going to stay sharp. I'm going to be ready to go. I'm not going to let this happen to me. And of course, everyone thinks that, but it's pure statistics. You don't know when that's going to happen to you. You have to always, head on a swivel doesn't even begin to describe the way you have to operate. But again, getting back to what I was saying, a lot of these guys that quit the academy, I think 3 of them were because of these videos. Yeah. They were like, wait, this is not what I signed up for, which I do find fascinating. Not quite sure what you did have in mind. Yeah,
the amount of knowledge beforehand when you sit there and because we had some people too that were just like, oh no, I don't want to be like a beat cop, a patrolman. We're going to be a detective.
Yeah.
And most of us that were already in there were like, we're laughing. Like, you don't get to show up on your first day and they're like, hey, how you doing? They're like, good. I'm going to be a undercover narcotics sergeant. And they're like, oh, well, right this way, sir.
Yeah, fantastic. Your test scores are great enough. You're just a prodigy.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, it doesn't work that way. You're going to have to do your time as a beat cop.
Yep.
And there was a good deal of struggle. Not all of the police academy was really easy. I went into it with a great deal of assuredness because of what I had gone through, and I'm happy for that. And I did go through the academy with several other people that were also veterans, and most of them are still cops today.
Yeah.
At this very department. But you go through that and a bunch of additional training, your firearms training.
Yeah.
The penal code, all the testing. And then you do your additional training where you learn how to do traffic stops, felony takedowns. You learn how to do your entry tactics. Sadly, mass shootings were starting to be,
Yeah.
were starting to gain a lot of momentum. They were occurring on a more regular basis. So you had to learn how to react to those, which was
Pursuit driving. That was a fun one.
Yeah, it was cool. Yeah, you learn how to drive. You get nationally certified to do that.
Yeah.
That's actually, I thought that was a cool part. I never thought that'd be a thing, but at the end, you get a certificate that's like, you're nationally recognized of being a pursuit driver. It's pretty cool.
Yeah, it is.
And then you go through all of that. You go through this academy and you're rip running, ready to go. And then this whole time, especially at APD, you're in a tan uniform. They used to be tan.
Yep.
Dickies.
Yeah.
Tan Dickies. They looked hideous. I do not look good in tan, by the way. Every time I see some of my academy photos, I'm like, ugh. Like it matters now. But then you get your blues.
Yeah.
And there ain't a man or woman alive that looks poor in navy blue.
That's true.
That dark blue, man, just brings out my beautiful peepers.
Yeah.
And you graduate and you get your real badge.
Yep.
Because this whole time you're not wearing one.
Mm-mm.
And you get your big boy badge and you get sworn in by the chief. And, if I recall, the mayor even has a few words.
Yeah.
Very cool. I remember my hands were shaking. I couldn't believe I did it.
And it's a huge accomplishment.
Yeah.
I mean, when you get there and then they start going back over the academy and you start thinking about for you, the SWAT week and all that different, and then your CCP, your code of criminal procedure, your, traffic law, all your, I mean,
oh my Lord.
We're talking about code of criminal, I was thinking of,
penal code,
and it's so much information. And then the hands-on where you and your buddies in the academy are just beating the crap out of each other.
Oh my Lord.
With handcuffs on, you're swinging each other and trying to throw each other down because nobody knows what's going on.
Yeah.
Everyone's got wrist
mechanics of arrest.
Yeah, mechanics of arrest.
And defensive
everybody's
tactics.
Just beating each other up with batons.
I will give it to the Amarillo Police Department. I had been through some pretty significant martial training in my time in the U.S. Army. In the infantry especially, it's not required, but a lot of guys like to teach your dudes how to handle business with your hands and feet. And I'd say I'm pretty good at that stuff, but the defensive tactics and mechanics of arrest at APD whooped the brakes off me.
Yeah.
I was more bruised.
You get out of the academy and go home, go to bed.
You get thrashed.
Yeah.
You get thrashed. And I'm a bigger dude. I'm a big, strong dude. So I got extra thrashed because I can take it. That's what they said. They're like, oh no, we're going to use him as an example because he's a bigger guy. He can take it. So they're just batoning my legs for...
just karate chopping the insides of your
hitting you in that and
getting you in your carotid arteries and
your femoral
and then getting Judy chopped on your carotid.
That's right.
Your carotid arteries and all your and I'm serious, they're just whacking the crap out of you.
And they tell you, and if you don't hit hard enough, they make you do it till you hit hard enough. And so the guy that you're whooping on is like, please just get it over with.
Yeah, just do it.
Yeah.
Because I don't want you to have to do it 3 times.
Yeah. And people are like, I'm sure people listening is like, can it be that bad? And the answer is yes.
Yes.
You're beating the crap out of each other. But the thing is,
totally worth it.
Imagine you're trying to knock the bejesus out of your squad mate and you look really sad doing it.
Mm-hmm.
Just imagine having a sad puppy dog face while you're just punching your friend in his brachial plexus tie-in. Just so many times.
Yeah.
You're arm barring. You're flipping. You're disarming, like the pistol disarming training that you go through. You really gotta crank on people with that.
Yeah.
But anyway, you go through all that.
And don't forget pepper spray.
Oh yeah.
CS gas.
Oh, the taser.
And taser.
Yeah. Thanks for reminding me of that. That's a huge thing to bring up.
Yeah.
People always ask me that.
Yeah.
Do you have to get tased to carry one? And the answer is yes. And it sucks.
Yeah.
So
depending on what department you're at, I know some departments now have changed it to where you don't necessarily have to get tased, but I'm pretty sure the pepper spray is the same. But I did. I got tased. You got tased.
Oh yeah.
We both got sprayed. I mean, it is. Some people ask that, and if that is like your make or break, you might want to ask before you apply because
it's
more
miserable.
than likely it's going to happen to you, and it's
horrible.
Terrible.
It's the longest 5 seconds of your life. So I had we voted for class leadership, academy leadership rather. And so I ended up being the vice president of my academy.
Nice.
And so I had to go second. And because I'm a bigger guy, I'm putting air quotes on that.
Yeah.
I had to get tased in one of the worst spots you can get, which is the spread of your back.
Oh, sweet.
So the top of my left shoulder to the top of my right buttock.
Yep.
And it was horrible.
That's actually a pretty good spread too.
Because how a taser works is this little probe goes into your flesh and meat about a half an inch, and it fires a 50,000 volt arc between the two needle points that causes neuromuscular interruption.
Yeah.
Basically, this charge of electricity is scrambling the signals to your brain.
Yeah.
It's not painful. That's very important to explain. It's not pain.
Yeah.
It's just discomfort.
It is very uncomfortable.
And so
it's weird.
you hear
while you're saying that, I can't, because you can hear it going,
yep,
making the noise, but I can't explain what it feels like because I don't.
It's not pain. I do remember that. It's just pressure.
Yeah.
Because you hear it fire off. It sounds like a gunshot, like a small gunshot when it goes off. And so you have the people come up and they hold on to you so you don't fall.
On your face.
On my face, because it's my back. And you don't get to look at the guy, so all you hear is, stand by.
Yeah.
And you're just like, ah! Dude. And you get to ride the lightning for that 5 seconds. And I screamed so long and loud. Again, 5 seconds.
Yeah.
But this is how I remember it.
The longest 5 seconds.
And I ran out of breath. So my mouth is open but no noise is coming out. And then it just stops.
Like you just got gut punched in your xiphoid process or something.
Yep. And then it's just like, snap your fingers. It's done. And then you're just like.
You get up off the ground. And you're like, oh, all right.
Yeah. Actually, that was
Who's next?
That was a unique part of my taser training. I actually didn't fall. I stayed on my feet the whole time, which is incredibly rare.
Yeah.
And so I rock back on my heels and I'm like, get these probes out of me right now.
Yeah. We're talking like a barbed
it's got
probe.
a little fishy hook probe, like barb on there.
Yeah, and you just kind of mush the skin up a little bit, and the great thing about it is that that area is numbed.
It is, luckily. I did feel a pinch.
Yeah, it's not like you got.
It got me in my butt cheek, man.
Yeah.
I felt it.
It's not like you got like lidocaine or something, but it's it's just a little pressure, and they kind of pinch it a little bit, and then. Just like you're doing a vacuum cleaner. Just pop that thing out.
Very important part of the story I left off. This is Thanksgiving 2010. This is the morning of Thanksgiving.
Sweet.
So we are literally coming in to just get tasered.
And then go eat.
And then head out to go enjoy the holiday with our family. So, they basically are like, wear clothes you don't care about. Because, you're not going to bleed a lot, but you might. Yeah. You might bleed a little. Yeah, anyway. Could. And then and then a few days later, you do OC spray or pepper spray.
Yep.
Which, I'm a full-blooded ginger. And so pepper spray absolutely demolished me.
Yeah. I got the fair skin and the blue eyes as well. I got a red beard, but that's it.
Yeah. My eye swelled. My face swelled. I have a picture from that day and you can visibly see where I was sprayed is like swollen.
Yeah.
It was horrible, but fun.
I had to get driven home.
The important part is,
because I couldn't open my eye.
Dang it, boy. Yeah, but didn't you end up getting kind of hurt?
Yeah. I had a needling, is what they call it, where the guy that was doing it's always important to look and see if like the OC or taser, if it says with application, that means you're getting it. So when I got my OC spray, the guy was standing kind of close, but he was supposed to get the top of my forehead and let it run down. And then you have to go through a deal where like you have to do some combatant stuff and, tell people like drop the knife or drop the gun or drop the whatever. But anyways, the guy sprayed and it went directly into my eyeball and kind of had a needling effect where the pepper spray went underneath my eye. But I was fine after that. A couple days later.
It goes away. It runs out. Away. So again, back to what I was saying, you go through all that and you do have a great amount of pride because that's not something that everyone's cut out to do.
No.
Especially, and I went through the academy with a lot of people that this is all they ever wanted to do. Mm-hmm. So I always had to levy that against how I felt. Like, I never thought about being a cop before, but here I am doing the damn thing. Mm-hmm. And I did do it. And you get your badge and then you go through FTO, which is a lengthy process.
Yeah.
So you're going to be an FTO for like another 6 months almost. And it works in 4 phases. You have 25% phase where you're basically doing 25% of the work.
Yeah.
Then you go through
75.
Right. 25, 50, 75 ghost. And so, for a couple of weeks, you do 25%. And then if you pass that, because you have to pass each phase. You go to 50%. Now you're doing 50% of the work, and so on until you get to ghost phase, where basically your FTO is basically just watching you do your job, and he's helping you if you need it.
Yeah.
Spoiler alert, they don't.
No, when you get to ghost phase and they're like, you're going to be doing pretty much all the work and the other person's just going to be supervising it. No, that dude's chilling.
Yeah, he's
not doing much. He's going to take that, especially if you're working midnights. He's going to take that opportunity, catch up on a few things.
Yeah. Does it start with a Z?
Yeah.
Does it sound like? Okay,
Yeah,
cool. We're on the same page.
I think it's like Z, 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 and they're going upwards. Yeah.
Yeah. Yes, of course. But so you go through all that. And that's nice. You actually feel like you have a bit of a safety net. You feel supported.
Yeah.
Even though I have many stories about the shenanigans of being an FTO. But what we're talking about here is becoming a cop and realizing that it's not as glorious or as awesome as people often like to make it seem like. And so one day you're done with all that. You graduated the academy. You passed FTO. Now you're a cop.
Mm-hmm. You're a real deal.
You're a big boy cop.
Yeah, you get your own car.
That's right.
You get assigned your own car. You got your own stuff. When you go 1041, which is the 10 code we use for beginning your tour of duty, you go 1041. You're by yourself, and whatever your rotation is in the call for dispatch or whatever side of town you're on or however that works, like you're in it, and it's full go. And
I'll never forget. You get done, and they actually tell you about it. They tell you, like, you're going to load your car. Because at APD, they ride one man to a car.
Mm-hmm. We're the same.
Right. They do have specialized patrols where they do multiple people, which I did get to do a bunch of that later on. But when you start, I was on evenings. Mm-hmm. So I worked.
Me too.
I worked 4 to 2.
Okay.
So you were 410s at APD at the time. And I come in, load your car. Well, you go to muster. Mm-hmm. They make sure that you're there and you have a pulse.
Yeah.
And then you go load your car. You grab all your stuff. You make sure you double and triple check. You log into the computer, which sometimes these things are clunkers too.
Yeah.
There's nothing glorious about a cop car. I just want to go ahead and get rid of that right now.
So to the lowest bidder.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, everything, you're like, half the time, most of your stuff just doesn't even work.
The most downtime this car will have in a day is 2 to 4 hours.
Yeah.
Other than that, it's driving.
Yep.
It's being driven in. So it gets grody quick. You'll learn very quickly to carry Clorox wipes or Germ-X wipes, I think were the thing when I was a cop.
I got a take-home ride, so I'm sorry for you.
Yeah. Nice flex. So then now you're sitting there and you're done and you're like, cool, man, I'm ready to go. And then I grab the mic and I go to click it to say that I'm in service, and suddenly I just freeze. Yeah. Just like they tell you you're going to. It's so funny. They tell you you're going to do that.
Yeah.
And I'm like, no, I'll be fine. But then you realize you don't know if you're going to be fine.
Yeah.
Like, this is it. You're about to go out and be a cop in the dadgum city that you trained to be a cop in. And it starts right now. This is the realest. There might not be anybody there to help you.
And you've always had someone that's what we were saying. Like, when you're an FTO, you've always had someone there with you. And I know that when I went 1041 my first day that I was by myself, directly after that, I got sent to a one-man call. Mm-hmm. So I was by myself.
Yep.
I was responding to an area to take a call by myself. Mm-hmm. And that realization it hits pretty hard.
It did.
But it's I know some of this may kind of sound overwhelming, but after I remember the first day I was sitting in my car and I went 1041. I was just so proud of like everything that I'd been through from that point that got me sitting in that car.
Same.
With that radio.
Yeah.
And all my gear and all my stuff, and I'm ready to go. It was really cool.
It is cool. And I think I was 351. That was my very first ever beat.
Yep. I was 638.
And so I remember that I said it so quiet on the radio out of nerves.
Yeah.
Which everybody does too.
351, 41. Like,
and they're like, yeah, Unit 10-9.
10-9.
Yeah, just right in your face. Exactly. And so I went in service, and this is evenings is a busy time.
It was. I was on evenings too. And not every department does this, but if you can start out on evenings, just do it.
Mm-hmm.
Because you're going to just get thrown in the mix.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, it's going to be fast and furious.
It is too. Car accidents, which, golly, I think that's what you do the most. If you're operating anytime during daylight hours as a police officer, it's car accidents.
Mm-hmm.
They happen everywhere. And so,
and then later on in the evening, guess what it is? Family violence, drunks.
Yep. Loud music calls.
Yeah.
And so all of that, suddenly you can't believe of some of the stupid crap that you're dealing with.
Yeah.
That's something that I learned very quickly. And then sometimes I just get back in my car and be like, holy cow, you can call the cops for anything.
Yeah.
And I remember telling my family that. Again, this is when the mystique began to fall off. You think you're out there fighting crime. You're Sylvester Stallone, freaking Cobra.
Yeah.
You're the cure for crime. No, you're not. You're going to take a report because a neighbor didn't give back his other neighbor's garden hose.
Yes.
And that's a real thing.
You're going out to somebody's house because, like, I was out in the county and they're like, that guy over there's kid is riding his dirt bike and he's flinging the dirt in my yard. And I'm like,
I'm sorry, what?
Am I really here for that?
Yeah.
Is that what I'm really here for?
Yeah.
Yes, I just drove all the way across the county to come over here so you can tell me that you're mad because your neighbor's son's dirt bike, dirt off the tire kicked up into your yard?
His dirt kicked onto your dirt?
He's like, it went over my fence.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it's a wooden post, guy.
Yeah, and if you think we're kidding, we're not.
Oh, and I guarantee you, Mike and I have got 1,000 more.
Oh, yeah. No, this is why we're calling it part 1, because this is stuff that's going to continue, because you cannot believe, even in the short time that I was a law enforcement officer, the amount of crazy things that you not only hear about, but also see and participate in. But also something we want to touch on is how ugly so many people are to cops. Why we're telling you this is because cops are just normal people.
Yeah, that's why we wanted to emphasize, like, Mike got out of the military. He's sitting around. He's looking for something to do. Right after that, he's in the academy. Boom, it's rolling. I was literally working in a convenience store right before I came into here and, walked in the door to start my first day. And then I didn't realize how much some people will hate you for no reason. Mm-hmm. And then on top of that, and I know there's some people that might be listening to this right now saying, yeah, well, there's dirty cops out there. That I understand that.
Yeah, totally.
But what I'm saying is the majority of the cops out there are not bad people. And the thing is that their shell has gotten so hardened over the stuff that they've had to deal with on a repetitive level,
mm-hmm.
day in and day out, that sometimes they're not the most personable people. Sometimes they're not having the best day. Sometimes they're getting divorced or lost their children or, I remember when I was in the academy, they said the 3 most likely things that will happen to a police officer is they will become alcoholics,
mm-hmm.
get divorced, or commit suicide. And then the guy just kind of looks around and is like, and sometimes it's in that order. And I'm like, oh my gosh.
And the statistics don't lie. That's very true.
Yeah, there's usually, if I may be speaking at a thin air here, but is there more police suicides than there are killed in the line of duty?
I believe so.
Or it's pretty close.
I believe that's correct.
And and you have to understand that people are seeing some stuff.
That's true.
We saw some stuff, and it gets to the point where, sometimes the outlet for that, for people that work in law enforcement is maybe having some drinks or having some stuff. And there's a lot of things working, shift work, and all the things that compound over time, and sometimes in a short period of time. Like they tell you if you're married or if you have a significant other or whatever the case, make sure you talk this over with them. I know, like at APD, they will come and talk to your spouse and ask them, are you guys
good?
Are y'all good? And are y'all ready for this?
Mm-hmm.
He or she is about to work shift work. He or she may not be here on any of the holidays, including Thanksgiving and Christmas.
That's right. Yeah.
Can you deal with that person being gone? If you're in a specialized unit, can you deal with them getting up in the middle of the night and leaving?
Yep.
Can you handle your significant other not being home? Like when I worked on midnights, my wife was like, So you're never going to be at home at night except for my 2 days off.
That's right. Yeah. And luckily I had already had a lot of experience with that in the military. But a lot of people don't have that type of experience before. So they go from being a regular, let's say 9 to 5er, to having a job, the academy, which does work on banker's hours. But after the academy,
you'll never see those for a long time.
That's right. Yeah. It's going to be some years before you have good hours.
Yeah. And that's assumed that you either promote up, like you rank up, or you get in a specialized unit that has, like 8 to 5.
Yeah.
And there's not a lot of them. And trust me, there's a lot of people jockeying for them.
Oh man, there is. Yeah. And I think my first days off, again, APD works 410s. And my first days off was Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday.
Yeah, mine were Monday, Tuesday.
Which, of course, I didn't mind. In fact, I think everybody should work 410s because if you only had to work 2 extra hours a day to have 3 days off a week, I would do that. No questions asked. That was my favorite schedule because, man, you really feel that third day.
Yeah.
It was so nice.
And that's how we kind of got to hang out a little bit. Yeah. Because you were off Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and I was off Monday, Tuesday. So our Tuesdays hit.
Mm-hmm. That's true. Yeah, that's how we met. I met you through another guy that came by to a shindig at my house. And then we started talking. And then I eventually, if he couldn't make it, you still ended up getting invited. And then we became friends. And now it's been...
Yeah, it was 2011, wasn't it?
It's been 10 years. Yeah. It's been almost 10 years that we've been friends because we started cracking cold ones.
Yeah. And I remember the first time, I don't know if you do, but I remember the first time that I saw you in a work situation. And me and a guy that I worked with, because we worked, like we've already said, we worked at 2 different departments, but in the same city. And we were going over to serve a warrant, I think at Slumgate.
Oh, yeah, Sungate.
Yeah. And I don't know if the person wasn't there, but then you guys had something where y'all were chasing somebody and then they drove a vehicle into the apartment complex and then bailed. And so when I got to my car, I heard the radio traffic, so I drove over there and they had already caught the guy and there were some people standing around. And I don't know if you remember that, but I think that's before we even started hanging out like at your house. But I talked to some people and I met all you guys and then the rest is history.
Yeah, man, I don't have like a firm memory on that, but yeah, I do kind of remember that. And wasn't it towards like on the side closer to like the Motel 6?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I kind of have a faint memory of that.
Yeah.
But no, I didn't know you then.
Yeah, we ended up actually going back a couple days later and finding that guy that was living there and arrested him. But
yeah,
and that's another thing. Like when you talk about people with warrants and stuff like that, and you're like, oh, how can you do that? How can some of the stuff like that? That's when we're talking about kind of that facade and how some of that stuff kind of just slips off. Like you get a warrant in your box that's signed by a magistrate saying that you will go find this person and you will put them in custody. You'll take them into custody. You'll take them to jail, and it does not matter whether or not you agree with it.
That's right.
You just go do it.
Yeah, in the Texas Penal Code, if the word shall is present, that's an order from a judge.
Yeah.
And you don't get to choose.
Or if like it says, if it's a legislated law, like if something in there that says you shall do this, then you shall do it or you will be in trouble.
You will get in big trouble. Yeah. You better have a good excuse as to why you didn't find them.
Yeah.
Because if you make contact and don't arrest them, you're in big trouble. And you don't want to be the law dog.
No.
That got told to go arrest somebody and didn't do it.
And didn't do it, yeah. And yeah. So I and that's, I think, for me, working in the jail and then going to patrol, like I said, that kind of gave me a different perspective on a lot of things because in the jail, people used to try to take me all the time. Like they try to get you where you're like, we just got this guy. Like they'll tell like, oh man, I need to do this or I need to do that. And then let me tell you, the first time that you get duped by somebody and then find out about it, or what's even better is when your coworkers let you know it happened, which by the way, you won't live down for a long time.
Not in that line of work.
No, you change your tack real quick. And that's why I was saying, if you're going to work in law enforcement, firm, fair, and consistent is the best way to go because you can always back off if you need to.
That's right.
If you try to, if you're real laxed about what you're doing and then you try to act harder and be more of a stickler, people will hate you for it more especially inmates. When you're in actual policing, it's different because you're coming across so many different people every day. But when you're in the jail, you're running across the same group of people every day for a long time. Like, I know that there were some guys that were in that jail, in a county jail, for years.
Yeah.
For a lot of years at a time. Like, these guys may have been in there right before you started your career, and then a couple years later, you're looking back on your time there, and you're like, oh yeah, so-and-so's been there this whole time.
Mm-hmm.
So it's one of those things, like I said, firm, fair, and consistent. Stay on that. And we're not in any way trying to scare anybody away from it. I think that in the type of climate we're in right now, we need more police officers. We need people to apply to be police officers that want to do the job. And we just kind of wanted to give you a little bit of what maybe what your first 6 months to a year might look like.
Mm-hmm, yeah. And again, this is only part one. There's a whole lot more we can talk about if this is something that people want to hear.
Yeah. Because we've got, trust me, we've got a lot of stories that go into this.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's important for people to hear it. I think, because one of the things that we still have a lot of friends that work in law enforcement, and we've got a lot of friends that don't work in law enforcement.
Mm-hmm.
And, I even used to work for not work for this guy, but I worked with a guy who was at our department for like, I don't know, a year or something like that. And then he left and he went and bounced around at a couple different places. And then he killed somebody.
Mm-hmm.
Just like weird things. And that's I don't want people to think that there's some sort of, here's another thing I wanted to bring up in this first one. The blue wall of silence. Like, a lot of people think that there's a lot of shady things that happen in law enforcement where cops are doing all this stuff and they're getting away with everything and doing a lot of, like, I can tell you firsthand and seeing different things and going through different things, you don't get a walk on everything. Now, is there perks to the job, so to speak? Is it? Yeah, of course there is. That's going to be in any line of work.
Right.
But if people, from what I see, especially you see on TV where cops are covering up crimes or doing all this junk, and that's not really, and I'm coming off of episode that we did about Johnny Frank Garrett.
Mm-hmm.
Do things happen? Absolutely things happen. But is there kind of this, like I said, the blue wall of silence where nobody tells on anybody that's a bad cop? No, that's not real.
Not even close.
You're not going to get
take your
sandbagged.
licks most of the time.
Yeah, you take your licks, and that people need to stop. If a police officer makes a minor mistake or something that is considered to be minor, people got to stop calling for all these people's jobs.
Yeah,
and getting people fired and doing different things like that.
I mean,
I don't want to get into politics because we're not doing that on this podcast.
Heck no.
But I just want people to understand that mistakes can be made. These people are running high energy a lot of days a week. A lot of them work off-duty jobs. A lot's going on. There's a lot of pressure. I would tell anybody, just like I would tell cops. When I worked in law enforcement, sometimes you got to show people grace. If you're in the public, show some grace.
Exactly.
And my favorite line, and I almost forgot about this, but I didn't, is my Roadhouse line.
Nice.
There was a part in Roadhouse and where Patrick Swayze is talking to the bouncers, and he's the cooler, and he says to them, "It's just a job. It's not personal."
That's right.
And people have to, if you're in law enforcement or you plan to work in law enforcement, when I went back and I referenced that point where that guy hated me on my very first day, my first 10 minutes, he didn't hate Justin Crowley.
That's right.
He hated what I stood for and the badge and everything that goes with it. But it's not personal to me.
That's right.
Specifically to me.
I used to say that I had a similar saying, they don't hate Mike Smith. They hate Officer Smith.
Yeah.
They don't even know me. All they see me is from the neck down.
Yeah.
And really, I reasoned it this way. Humans instinctually do not like authority. When you're a child, you don't like being told what to do. You especially don't like being told what to do and then getting whooped for doing that anyway. And then you're getting told your whole life that you get to do it your way when you're older.
Yeah.
When you're 18, you can do whatever you want.
Yep.
Drive wherever you want. Do whatever you want. You're an adult.
Yeah.
And then you go into high school and they're like, you're a teenager now. You have more responsibility and soon you get to do whatever you want.
Yeah.
And then you become an adult and none of that was true.
Yeah.
Now you have not just as much responsibility, but now you have all the culpability.
Yeah.
And what I mean by that is now when you screw up, it's your fault and not your parents' fault.
Yep.
And so when you're out having a good time, cracking cold ones on a Saturday night, getting a little loud and loony with your buddies, jamming out to some Florida Georgia line.
Oh, please don't.
And then somebody calls the cops on you for being loud, and Officer John Q. Public shows up and he's like, hey, y'all need to turn it down. And you're like, you can kiss my rosy red. What?
Yeah.
Because you don't like the fact that somebody told you to turn your music down.
Yeah.
It's the same way if your neighbor came out and said, turn it down. We're trying to sleep here.
Yep.
And you're like, you can go to hell.
Yeah. And guess what? The officer that showed up there to tell you to turn your music down, he doesn't want to be there either.
Definitely not. No, I never wanted to be what's affectionately referred to as a party pooper.
Yeah.
That's never been me. I'm a good time Charlie all the way. But you do have to do it because it comes down to the legality of it. And that's the way law is written. It's written a little gray, but it's mostly black and white. So if you're causing a disturbance, and guess what, people? Your neighbor calling the cops is considered a disturbance.
Yeah.
If somebody takes the time to call the police, so a cop is going to come see what the deal is. Even if he ends up doing nothing, you might not even know the officer showed up at all, because a lot of times we'd just do that.
Yeah.
We'd park nearby. We'd get out in the dark. We'd keep our radios turned down. We wouldn't use our flashlights, and we'd walk up and we'd listen and be like, this is a reasonable party. Or you get the very opposite. You roll up and they're having
It's a full-on rager.
It's a full-on rager dialed up to 11. There's a naked dude throwing a trash can off a roof, and you're like, okay, this one's a little out of control.
Yeah, we're going to have to go and step in on this one.
Right.
Yeah.
But the important thing to remember is these are just regular folks doing their job, and they more than likely don't want to be there any more than you do. But we just don't like authority.
Yeah.
Nobody likes being told what to do.
And cops don't make laws.
No.
They enforce laws.
They enforce them, yeah.
There's so many videos going around right now where people are like, "Oh, you're pulling me over for a seatbelt, or you're pulling me over for this, or you're pulling me over." I'm sure someone's getting murdered in town, right?
I love
like that whole statement. But listen, there's a lot of times that people get grants for areas where they do DWI patrols, they do seatbelt, patrols, they do interdiction, they do all these different grant, public or federal grant type situations where if there's a big problem in the city that you live in, they specialize in on these, they kind of hone in to these areas, and they start looking at them further. And I'll hear people say like, oh, I got pulled over for not wearing a seatbelt. I should be able to have the choice whether or not I want to wear a seatbelt. Let me tell you something. I agree with that.
Yeah.
But you know what? Your state legislators did not.
That's right.
And so it's not the police officer that makes the law. It's your state legislators. It's your state government or your federal government. So if you have an issue with the law, go talk to your legislators. Go talk to your, to your state representatives, your senators, your congressmen. All of those people are the ones that write these laws and then put them into effect.
That's right.
Cops don't do any of that. They also can't change it. And so, just like I said, just maybe a little grace.
Yeah, of course.
Both sides. And
these are the things that I want to talk about with people. And more often than not, when I do talk about this with people, they're interested because it's an entirely different life or a side of the coin that they would never see otherwise. When you just one day you go through the rigmarole and you become a cop, and now you're you're part of two different worlds.
Yeah.
You have the time, you're a regular person when you're off work to a certain extent.
Yeah.
Because you still carry your badge and your firearm on you.
Yep.
And you're expected to a certain degree to still maintain that type of integrity.
Yep.
And awareness as when you're on duty. I think in Texas specifically, you're not required to interfere when you're off duty, but you do have to be a good witness, I think is the term. So if you want to be the guy that gets up from his dinner table to go confront a group of cursing teenagers in rosas, you can be that guy if you want. because that's technically disorderly conduct.
Mhm.
They're disturbing the peace, I think is the colloquial term that people like to use.
And as long, I think as far as that, like with language, is somebody quote unquote offended.
Being offended, yeah.
Being offended by that language, then
Right.
then you can have some sort of disturbance there.
Right. Or you can be the cop that's listening to those kids and realizing that you did that very same thing 10 years ago.
Yeah. And all you want to do is eat your burrito and go home.
Yeah, I'm going to eat my number 2 soft beef.
Yeah. And head to the house.
And I'm going to head to the house
Yeah.
because who cares?
It's been a hell of a week and
Yeah.
I got to go.
So if these are things that you are interested in hearing us talk about, or maybe even specific examples that you're looking for.
That's what I was going to say. If you
Yeah.
have something specific, because we're going to wrap this up and get on to the next episode, hopefully soon. But like Mike was saying, if it's something good, if it's something you want to listen to.
Yeah, no, these are, because I get asked this all the time when people eventually find out that I used to be a cop. They ask like what's the craziest thing you've ever seen?
Yeah.
Please also really specify that down because I've seen a lot of crazy things.
Yeah.
But what's the wildest story that you have? What's the craziest DUI? What's the funniest fight you've ever been in? What's just some crazy things that you see? What's the grossest thing you've seen? Because that's also a very broad topic as a law enforcement officer. But,
we're going to dial it back.
Of course, yeah. We're going to try to stay from the really crude details in language just because that's what we're starting with and we're going to keep with. But really, if these are things that you want to hear, go ahead and let us know. You can email us. You can message us on Facebook, on Twitter. These are things that you can ask about. And you know what? And when we get to a part 2 of the Two Not Cops, we'd definitely like to answer them because, again, we're just regular people. And, neither Justin or myself is a cop anymore by choice to some degree in my end, and his. But, we just decided we weren't going to do that anymore. And it's funny that a lot of the qualities you cultivate as a police officer, those never go away.
Yeah, for sure.
I'm talking about the Night Fox.
Yeah.
A story for another day.
That's me. I
And
am the Night Fox.
And these are things that we like to talk about because I think the world, especially in the last 10 years, has gotten really hard charging about putting anybody in law enforcement under a magnifying glass.
100%.
And you know what? That is a good choice. You definitely should question anybody that's in a governing role above you. But if I was going to give you any advice, I'd turn that magnifying glass to anyone in Congress. But they'd probably find a lot more dirt there. But hey, that's just one guy's opinion in Amarillo, Texas.
Yeah.
So just let us know what you think about this episode and what types of things, if you do like it, you'd like to hear in the future because I like to share.
Yeah, me too. And so I think we're going to leave it there for now. But if you guys, like Mike said, if you have any questions for us, if you have any concerns, any comments, anything that you want to bring to light, you can find us on all the social medias. We are on Facebook at The Murder Project. If you're looking for us and you have to type it in, we're at facebook.com/podcasttmp. If you are searching for us on Instagram, we're at The Murder Project. And if you're looking for us on Twitter, we're at The Murder Pod. Also, as always, we ask you guys to go on to Apple Podcasts or anywhere that you can leave us a review. Leave us a comment, hit that 5 stars, let us know how we're doing, help us get past the algorithm so that we can get our name out to more people. Tell your friends about us, tell your family about us, anybody that you think might like to listen to a podcast like this. Make sure if you have any concerns about the podcast or something that you might like to see different or in a direction you go to, we're going to listen to the fans. We're going to listen to everybody that's going on. Obviously, we're not going to change our whole format, but we're definitely going to listen to everything that you guys are telling us. So please make sure to go on our email address. If you want to drop us an email, like if you have something that's a little longer that you want to let us know, you can email contact@themurderproject.com and it'll go straight to our email box and we'll make sure and get back to you as soon as we can.
Mm-hmm.
So I think, like I said, we're going to leave it there for next time. I hope to speak with you guys soon, but until then,
head up, eyes up,
and stay alive.